Right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's wonderful to see all of your faces. And so we have a lot of material to cover. It's going to take us a long time. Um, but I think I found a way to speed through things. Yesterday I was having a whole series of my own personal afflictions, and I was trying to help people, and then people weren't letting me help them, and then they were misunderstanding, and I was getting quite irritated because nothing made sense to me. And then I was like, this class doesn't make sense to me. Like, and and I decided instead of trying to solve the problem, I went for a walk. It's a great thing to do when you're upset about something, to get some clarity of what's going on. Um, and I did the thing that I shouldn't have done is I shouldn't eat pizza because it makes me it's just not good for me. Always makes my stomach upset, but I did it anyway. And while I was sitting there, just I was watching a football game, American football game. I'm like, this is how deep it goes, guys. I was like, I don't understand logic, so I'm gonna go watch football and eat pizza. And then while I was sitting there, the some of the pieces came together because what I was trying to figure out is like each of these classes is unique. Like there's a lot of like detailed information, and I was trying to figure out like I'm always trying to think why this class now, like why this, like why are we getting this information at this point, and how is it helping us, really how is it helping us on our path, and I think that's the big question we need to ask ourselves. Not like, okay, I'm getting this definition right, that's one thing, but I think how is today's information that's coming at me, right? The information that's coming at me from the world, from people, the like the shapes and colors and sounds that my mind is interpreting in a certain way. What is the message for me today, right? What is the message that the Buddhas are sending Tim today? Right? What is the message that's sending you today? And then you can look at how you feel about it, and you can look at what you understand about it, and then you can say, well, I'm having a certain experience today, right? And today's experience is brought to you by mental affliction 422, right? And then you're like, okay, well, what is this really about? What is that affliction about? What am I not understanding? Because if you're upset, there's something you're misunderstanding. Either we're going to talk near the end of the class, and this is why it's relevant. We're going to talk about what makes for a correct or a valid perception, and what makes for a perception that's a perception, but it's a perception that's not valid, and one where it brings up, like, perhaps is bringing up a whole series of emotions and confusions and experiences that frankly have more to do with me, right? I'm not talking about you guys. You can worry about yourselves. It what does it say about me and the seeds I have and the seeds that I obviously planted at some point to create this experience. And then what can I do about it? I could choose to stay grumpy. I could choose to, Tracy's like, no. I could choose to remain upset. I could choose to exclude myself. I could choose to reject people, or I could choose something different. I could choose, well, maybe I could choose understanding, or I could choose more intimacy, right? Do you want to get close to someone? Ask them that, like, get clear on what you're upset about. Get clear on what they're saying to you. It could be the most uncomfortable conversation, but then you know each other better. And that's closeness. Like, that's not like, sure, you're upset. Sure, they're upset. But you could choose a different path. You could choose to distance yourself, or you could choose to say, well, maybe there's something here I'm not understanding. And so today's class is actually all about two things. It's just about two things. And we're going to go into 1,000 definitions of those two things. Anastasia is like, yeah, give it to me. Two things. One, objects, the things that you perceive. All right. And then the other thing is subjects, anything that perceives an object. Okay. Mainly the perceiver and the perceived, those two items, right? If you're looking at a coffee cup, okay, right? There's the coffee cup, and then there's the me perceiving the coffee cup, right? So we're going to go into the relationships of what are all these objects in the world, all these things that irritate us, all these things that upset us, all these people who are hurting us and not respecting us. Okay. And then all these people that like us, all these people that love us, right? All these coffee cups that hold beverages that infuse you with awakened goodness, you know. And then there's the me, the one who takes the object, who holds the object, the possessor, right? And why is that important, right? It's a deeply, deeply important for us to be able to pull apart our own understandings in our mind so we can understand chi and chedrak. So we're going to get a whole bunch of definitions today. This is a class where you pull out a pencil or a pen and you're just like, look at all these charts Tim made. He spent so much time on these charts. They're so beautiful. And then you're the one who has to go and piece all of them together. And somewhere inside all of that is another piece of the puzzle of Chichedrak, the quality and the characteristic of that quality. Car and carness, or the car. The perfect mental image cup and the cup. And somewhere in there, between this discussion of objects and subjects, we're going to find a bit of, you will find the clarity that you're looking for. All right. Before we go on that little trip, I have a different trip to go on. Okay. And we're going to take a break from all the logic. Well, we're not going to take a break from definitions, but we're going to go into when you're looking at a logical statement. There's three things that you need to do. And so we're going to start with that today. I'm going to give you a whole description of objects and subjects. Super exciting because it explains just about everything about how your perceptions work or how they don't work. And I'm not trying to say, look, I'm not trying to be judgmental, and I'm not trying to be like, oh, there's something wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong with the way we see things, the way we perceive things. So don't take it as, oh, Tim says I'm a wrong person. No, you're not a wrong person. You're trying to develop skills to navigate the wrong ways that we see things. Right. And even Aryas still see things incorrectly. Right. So don't think there's no work to do when you become an Arya. Right. Oh, it's going to be so magical. Sure, it could be. But you're still seeing things the wrong way. It's still coming at you. You now might have some more tools to understand it, but you still have afflictions. You still get upset to a certain point. Okay. So here we go. We're going to go into some things to look at when we're looking at logical arguments. All right. And this is really fun for me because it's really hard for me to wake up and do this. It's like, but it's actually good when you struggle through each of these items and you try to struggle through the why. It it supports your mind in a way that, how do I say this? This work you're doing in this class supports your mind to be able to give you actually a safe place to then explore emptiness. Your mind gets prepared to be safe and say, yes, we're going to do this, versus tighten down and turn into an affliction. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, I have the number 3 up here. There's 3 things you need to know. This is the end of the homework from last class, right? There's 3 things you have to know in a logical statement. Okay. First one. So we have the 3 sections of any kind of syllogism, when something gets presented to us. First, we have the subject. What is it that we're talking about? What do we claim about that subject, that topic? And then what reason do we give to prove the claim that we just made? Okay. All right, so we have 3 things. Consider sound. Here's the subject. We're talking about sounds. We're claiming that it's a changing thing. Like I come up to you, Yasheng, in the Taiwanese acupuncture clinic, and I'm like, yo, Yasheng, let's have a discussion. And you're like, oh, cool, I can finally talk to Tim. And then Tim says, let's talk about sound. Right? And Yasheng's like, what? And then I say, it's a changing thing. And she's like, okay, why do you say that, Tim? Like now she's just like, we're getting acupuncture in Taiwan. And now you just said sound is a changing thing. And then she says, well, why would you say that? Chichir, why would she say that? Why would he say that? And then I say, well, yeah, Shang, because it's a made thing. And then you're like even more confused. You're like, I don't care, Tim. you know. But so when someone presents something to you, this is normally what happens all the time in different ways. Someone gives you some topic, they say something about it, and then they give you the reason. So, how do you evaluate whether or not what they said is correct? Right? Because they could say something like I could say to you, Yasheng, well, consider sound. It's a changing thing because bananas are yellow. Like if I said that, you probably would be like, I don't know if that makes sense. So how do we, what process should our mind go through to make sense of that? Okay. So that's what our goal is by the end of this course, is to give ourselves the tools to start developing the habit of figuring out, is my perception making sense? That's what we're doing here. I don't care about sound. I mean, it's useful, right? But what we're doing is what I'm perceiving making sense? Or do I need to understand more? Or do I need to ask clarifying questions? Right? Okay, here we go. First one, first test. So there's 3 tests. So you take the first part and the third part. You take the subject and you take the reason. And the first thing you think about is there a relationship? And we'll talk about what those relationships are in a later class. Is there a relationship of between 1 and 3? Okay. And the 2 relationships are one of identity and one of cause and effect. And we'll talk about that later. So is there something about 1 and 3 that makes sense? Basically, consider sound. It is made. Okay. Are there sound? Okay, so are there sounds that aren't made? It would be very difficult to show that one. But it seems pretty clear it seems pretty accurate that 1 and 3 are related in a way. Sounds are made. If it's not made, there won't be any sound. Like you hit a drum and then there's a sound. You turn on the music on your phone, there's a sound. You know, the cat jumps off the bed in the middle of the night and trips and wakes you up because they made a sound, right? So that's the first test, 1 and 3. All right. Now here's the second test. Now you're looking at the number 2 and number 3, the assertion and the reason. And you ask the question, if you do number 3, is number 2 correct? If 3, then 2. All right. So if something is made, is it a changing thing? That seems pretty accurate to me. Like if you make something, it's a changing thing. Something did something to make a sound. You made it and then it changed. In this case, it's sound. You hit a drum, boom, right? You made the sound. It's a functional thing. And then it's a changing thing because the sound starts, stays, and stops. Eventually, you can't hear the sound anymore, right? And there wasn't a sound before it was made. Okay. So if three, then two. And don't worry if you don't get it yet. It becomes automatic. All right. Then you do a different test. This is the third test. This is called the negative necessity. And I'll talk about it in a moment. And you say, okay, if not two, then not three. So you negate those two. So to do this, let's do the test. If it's not a changing thing, then it's not a made thing. So you negate the second one and you negate the third one. If it's not a changing thing, then it's not a made thing. Okay, so let's say it's not a changing thing. Let's think about unchanging things. Empty space. Is it empty space is not made? Okay, that makes sense. Let's find another example. Similar cases. Emptiness. Well, you don't really make emptiness. Emptiness is the lack of something coming from your seeds. Excuse me. The lack of something that's not coming from your seeds. Okay. I'm watching everyone go, the lack of something not coming from my seeds. Yes. I mean, like it's, and what this teaches us to do is it teaches our mind to quickly go through permutations. Like let's go through a different one here. More real world example. Your partner comes in and says, consider dinner, honey. Okay. Let's go to the Japanese restaurant. Why should we go to that Japanese restaurant, honey? Because we went to the Thai restaurant last night. Okay. Is that a valid syllogism? Is that logical? Let's run the test. Okay. Oops. Why are you doing it that way, buddy? There we go. Okay. Let's consider dinner. We went to the Thai restaurant last night. Is there a relationship between those two? What do you think, Persis? Yes or no? Just say yes. Just nod your head. Okay, good. Okay. There is some kind of relationship between dinner and the dinner we had last night. Okay. All right. Cool, honey. We're on the same page so far. By the way, do not actually do this in relationship. Okay. Excuse me, honey. The negative necessity of your logical argument does not hold. See how that goes. All right. Two and three. If three, then two. So, because we went to the Thai restaurant last night, therefore we have to go to the Japanese restaurant tonight. Is that is that logical in this sense? Does it hold? Because we went to the Thai restaurant last night, therefore we go to the Japanese restaurant tonight. Well, maybe, but it's not necessarily the case. Because you could say, well, sure, we went last night, but there's 13 other things on the menu, honey, that we didn't get. we certainly could go to the Thai restaurant tonight, right? So at this point, that as a syllogism, okay, careful, as a syllogism, this fails. Test two fails, okay? Because it's not necessarily the case. Now, we're going to learn a little bit later what you do when something's either flat out wrong or it's not necessarily the case. There's two ways to analyze this. But what I suggest you do is write these three down, right? You have subject, quality, and reason. And we should make an app like Duolingo that reminds you to practice your syllogisms every day and gives you prizes and points and little dancing emojis every time you do it, because it would help us learn these things faster. Because if you did this every day and then you took all these definitions that you're going to get today and put them in here, you would learn them very quickly. Now, I want to point out here what's necessary for us to understand this syllogism. Well, first of all, we had to study what a changing thing is and what a changing thing is not. We defined that way back, right? All existing things are divided into two, changing things and unchanging things, right? And then we defined what a changing thing is, right? It's a working thing, it's a functional thing, it's a made thing, right? If we don't agree to that already, then this doesn't make sense. Okay, Tim, what if I didn't agree to those definitions? Let's pretend, let's pretend Tracy wasn't in the first class. Okay. And she didn't get the definitions of changing things. And I'm like, yo, Tracy, right? Consider sound. It's a changing thing because it's made. And Tracy's like, no, what about the universal sound of Om? Okay. Now we're having a completely different discussion. So the cool thing and very difficult thing about logic, and this is thing to burn into your head when you're talking to anybody about anything, is you're not allowed to bring up things that people don't already agree to. It is illogical in Buddhist logic to bring up something that someone doesn't already accept. And you only are supposed to use things they do accept to put them together in new ways. So syllogism is just a logical statement. Those three things, Tracy: reason, assertion, quality, and assertion. Okay. So that's a very powerful statement. If you're a true logician, you have to understand somebody so well to even begin to debate with them. Right? That doesn't mean we don't talk about new information and we don't, that's not what I'm saying. But you have to have a common ground of understanding to be able to understand what we don't understand about the thing we thought we understood. Cool. That's the end of homework 4. And we're going to revisit it at the end of this class if we get there. Okay. What is eating up? Okay. All right. Let's get started on the next class here. I have to flip. I have to change PowerPoints. Hold on a second here. All right. Okay, here we go. All right. Oops, that's class 5. Here we go. We're now going to talk about the two things that I told you all about: objects and subjects. What are the things that we are perceiving and the perceiver? So we're going to go into a bunch of definitions today about what all those things mean so that we can start taking it apart with the purpose of getting us to see emptiness directly. All right. So we're going to start with objects first. We're going to talk about the things that we perceive. There are a lot of charts in this class, so please just take notes. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get my actual notes up. All right. Now we're ready to go. Okay. Class 5. Okay. So here's some definitions here. All right, we're going to get started. What are we talking about when we're talking about objects? Okay. First thing is an object is anything that can be perceived by a valid perception. All right. And what does it mean when we say a valid perception? We're going to get to it later in the class, but I'm going to say it now, just in case you decide to skip out on class. A valid perception is a fresh and unmistaken perception. Okay. And what fresh means is it's not a memory. In the second school, keep in mind we're talking about the second school. It's a memory. It's a fresh, unmistaken perception, something that's not a memory, meaning it's in the present moment. And then secondly is that it's not tainted by some kind of intense mental affliction or like drugs or alcohol or something like that. So like, if you're having an intense negative emotion, you may perceive things that aren't there, according to the second school. Okay. Like intense jealousy, for example, right? Or right, like if you have intense jealousy about your partner or someone that you like, you'll start seeing things that they're not actually doing. And it'll be real for you and you'll be having a whole world of experience, but it has nothing to do with what that person's doing. You see? So that's that kind of thing. Or if you're under the influence of like, I don't know, LSD or any kind of like psychedelic. Yes. Thanks, Anastasia. 101 survivors so far. Excellent. And so we have to be very careful, like what the second school is teaching us. Well, first of all, let's go back just a hot second. The the higher school will say you've never had a valid perception until you see emptiness directly, which is really depressing. Super depressing. But it doesn't mean the perceptions that you have don't function, right? That's not what it's saying. But the second school is really teaching us, okay, am I having a fresh, unmistaken perception? Meaning I'm not remembering something and I'm not under the influence of some negativity. And I would ask all of you to think about that a little bit. Like, is there a moment where you are having a perception that's not, and if you're having some kind of reaction to it, are you having some reaction to something that may have happened to you previously? Like unaware patterns, unaware habits, traumas, things like this, right? You know, but the idea really is like, are we ever having a fresh perception? Are we ever having a perception that's not imbued with some negativity? If it's not imbued with negativity, bless you. I watch all of you guys. And it's fresh, then you're having a valid perception. So in this school, you can have lots of valid perceptions, and we'll talk about what they are. Let's go on. So an object is anything that can be perceived with a valid perception. Cup, pink sunglasses, telephone, eye drops, coffee, you know, darkness, clouds, right? Everything, anything you can perceive with your senses by a valid perception, that's an object. What are some synonyms for objects? Here are two more synonyms. Existing objects, okay, and objects apprehended by the mind. They all refer to the same thing. Cool. These are all synonyms. So what happens when people start debating is that they might throw in a synonym to throw you off to see if you understand that it's a synonym or not. Like what normally would happen is in the morning, you would have a class like this. Then you would study in the afternoon. And then in the evening, you would go to the debate ground and you would start working through all of these ideas. Okay. And so then you try to flush out all the understandings and most importantly, flush out all the misunderstandings. Because as we said, the motivation of debate is to get to truth, to unravel, to reveal, to have truth arise. You see. So someone might be try to confuse you by giving these different words, but they actually mean the same thing. All right. So those are all equal to each other. And not that I'm going to tell you this, that you have to do it, but you should do this. Okay. Is that after classes, you really should review the information. Francisco, I really would love to learn about the stories of people chasing you. I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. So after a class, you should review everything you learned in that class. How many times? 3 times. Right. Last night I had a class, a personal class. I was the student. And I came home and I did the reading for that class. It's like I stayed up an extra hour to do that reading, you see. So because then it cements the ideas in your mind, and the idea is then review with each other, talk to each other about it, do your homework. The more if you repeat it, then you get it in your head. Anyhow, that's just a little side note. Find some find some debate buddies. Find a friend. If you're feeling like you're having disconnection, go find a Dharma friend. Okay. Find someone to talk to. Let's talk about existing objects. Oh, do you mean objects apprehended by the mind? Yes, it's the same thing. Okay, I'm a nerd. I'm sorry. All right, next. Okay. So what kind of objects do we have that are, all objects of the mind, right? All things that our mind is perceiving, everything that's being seen with a valid perception comes in. Here's another division. We're going to divide these two things into working things and unchanging things. Does somebody want to comment on this? Why didn't we say unchanging things and changing things? This is when the teacher says, go to the debate ground, right? Why are we not talking about or changing things? And why are we talking about working things? Right? You got to think about it. Maybe working things and functioning things and changing things are the same thing. Maybe. But there might be something we're highlighting by saying working things and unchanging things. Possibly. Let's see what it is. I had so much fun with this slide. I'm so proud of myself. But this one is just so you can see how these things were related previously, right? This one is objects of the mind, unchanging things and working things. And this one are all existing things, unchanging things, and changing things. There might be some difference. And you can go debate that with each other. Okay, so here we are. I'm proud of this slide. There's so much information on it. I'm sorry. So there's 5 major categorizations of working things. Okay. And in Abhidharma, we call them the heaps, the 5 heaps, pungpo, the 5 piles of things, the 5 groupings of things. Okay. And what are those 5 things? You probably have heard these things before. You can also call this the parts of a person. Okay. So there's 5 piles, 5 pungpos, 5 mountains of things, categorizations. Abhidharma is super fun for these things. Physical matter. All right. And we'll talk about physical matter in a second, because this gets divided into 2 things. Your feelings. Okay. Your capacity to discriminate between 2 different things, to draw a relationship or a non-relationship, at this or that. Then we say other factors, meaning of the 51 or 46 mental functions that don't fall into the other categories, they all fall into this category. I'll say that again. All right. Somebody in the Abhidharma divided all things, working things, all objects of the mind into 5 categories: physical matter, feelings, discrimination, other things, and consciousness, awareness. Okay. And according to the Abhidharma, let me get my notes up here. Excuse me, according to the Sutra school, the school that we're in, there's 51 mental functions. According to the lower school of the Abhidharma school, there are 46. All right. So in this thing, there's some kind of prioritization that the Abhidharmists and the sutras are putting on feelings, discrimination, and consciousness. And then there everything that's left over of the 51 or 46. And if you so want to do it, go read the Abhidharma. It's actually really helpful. It's drier than this material. Everything else falls into this other category, you know. So that's what that means. Everything else, which is kind of cheating, I think. But maybe they're just not as important. All right, that's a homework question. Screenshot that slide. That's question number 3. So then what I was mentioning is that physical matter can be divided into outer physical things and inner physical things. Right? So what does this mean? So physical things are anything that you can show someone to be physical matter, which is a weird definition. Things that you can see with the colors and shapes that your eyes perceive. So dividing these into 2, outer and inner, the Abhidharma will say, like, where do you stop and where does the world start? Like, where does Tim stop? And here's the hand and here's the coffee cup, right? Where does Tim stop and where does the coffee cup start? Right? You know, it seems like our body stops at the skin, right? Because I can feel, I can, like, if you rub your, someone rubs your arm, right? Pets your arm, you can feel it, right? Or if they do it very lightly, the little tiny hairs on your arm, you can feel that, right? You know, you can't really feel your fingernails, right? Which I accidentally bit this one, but kind of ripped yesterday, right? But you can't feel your fingernails, right? So are your fingernails part of you, right? And what they say is that the outer form is part of you. Outer matter is also part of you too. Where that line is, we can talk about. Shanti Deva talks a lot about it too. The Madhyamikans talk about it even more. So what this does for us is if we take these five heaps, like why are we dividing these into five? Because it allows you to see the emptiness of those five. And then you're able to take yourself apart. You can take what looks like a whole thing, break it into parts. You can deconstruct yourself. And then if you apply emptiness to it and be like, well, none of those parts are self-existent, then you can go to a you that's not self-existent either. That you are not independent of those five parts, and you are not those five parts put together, but somehow those five parts are you. So that's why we do that. The second thing here is inner physical matter. And what it's talking about, the things that are inside your physical body that you can't perceive directly. Maybe you can cut yourself open or something, right? Like your heart and your stomach and your optic nerves, right? All the things. Yeah, all the things within you. We'll just say that. Okay. What are feelings? There's five different types of feelings, right? There's good feeling, there's bad feeling, there's neutral feelings. And then those are kind of physical. Well, two of them are physical. Good and bad feelings are physical. Then you have good and bad mental feelings. And then there's just neutral feeling, sorwa. And this gets separated into its own part, even though there's 51 parts. Because your feelings are a very huge component of the thing that creates suffering for you. It creates your future suffering. And because you like certain things and you dislike certain things, you behave in certain ways that plant bad seeds. And we always say at this moment that it's not that we shouldn't like or dislike things. That's not what we're talking about. You should like the comforts of life. You should like food, right? You should like, it's not like that. But is that if you want to create a Buddha paradise, you have to know how to do it. And if you know how your feelings are intimately connected to the creation of a brick wall between you and a Buddha paradise, or the tearing down of that wall to walk to the other side, your feelings have a huge impact on that. The way you feel about something self-existently, which is what normally happens. I'm upset at this person. I can't believe this person did this to me. I can't believe they disrespected me. And then you start doing things based upon that. And usually if it's a negative emotion, it's because you don't want that negative emotion anymore. And you do things that plant bad karma. That's why they put it into its own section. So then thirdly, discrimination is another big troublemaker for us. And the main distinction of why this is why this is a big troublemaker for us. And it's not that we shouldn't discriminate between things. It's not like we just go, oh, the world just is. The isness of the world, right? It's like, things are red, things are blue. I like this, I don't like that, right? Buddhas discriminate too, folks. You know, the reason it becomes a challenge is because we say, this is mine and I'm not going to share it with you. Like, this is my house and I'm not going to share it with anybody. No one can come over, right? No one can enjoy in it. That's the fastest way to lose a house, by the way, karmically, right? Something weird will happen or it won't feel like a home. Some weird thing will start happening, you know. And just so you know, it's this idea that we don't have feelings, they don't like things. Like Buddhas like things. They like their paradise. They want their paradise. They want to keep their paradise. It's kind of automatic, but they want those things, right? And they don't like to see us suffering. So it's not that you stop liking things because you're a Buddhist. You just understand what it means to like something and how you could like something and what happens when you don't like something, right? And what do you do when you don't like something? Do you lean in and look for more connection, or do you pull away and look for more or create more distance, right? The fourth one, as I said, was other factors. It's everything else that doesn't fit into those categories. And then the fifth one is consciousness, awareness. And just so you know, like doesn't mean your brain. And then there's six types of awareness, which are your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and hearing your own thoughts in your mind. Right. And awareness isn't really physical, right? I can be aware what's in my refrigerator without being in my refrigerator. Okay. So you need to really think about all of these things because these things are the groupings of things that cause us the most problems, especially our feelings and our discriminations. Okay, next slide. Okay, we're done with objects. Yay. Okay, that's everything you need to know about objects. Congratulations. All right, let's move on to subjects, the perceiver of the objects. So in Tibetan, it's really kind of a cool, the wording is cool, in my humble opinion, right? The word for object is called yul, the thing that is perceived by a valid perception. And then a subject is a yul chen, which means the possessor of the object, the holder of the object, the one that has the object, something like that. So a subject, you can see even in Tibetan that they are deeply, they've made the words deeply related to each other. The one who possesses the object, the subject, and then the object itself. And then when we sneak up to the mind only school, which we're going to do in ACI 15, we're going to say that subjects and objects are of the same substance, meaning they come from the same seed. So anytime you look out into the world, you and the object you're perceiving are coming from the same seed. The you that arises and the coffee cup that's there is from the same seed. The you that's arising that's mad or hurt when they're hearing certain information are coming from the same seed. The information you're hearing in the you being hurt are from the same seed. All right. What are three, again, once again, we're going to go into this world of what are subjects? So the definition officially of a subject is anything which engages its object. Okay. This is in the logic school's definition of a subject. So there's three different kinds of subjects because of course there would be. Okay. We have states of mind. One state of mind would be jealousy, or another state of mind would be rejection, feeling rejected, or happy, something like that, relaxed. These are all state of minds, states of mind. And we have to say very carefully, states of mind acting as subjects. Your jealousy is holding on to the object of your jealousy. I can't believe my partner is talking to that other person who is very attractive. And then all of a sudden your jealousy becomes your state of mind. And then all of a sudden that object is the thing that's being held by the state of mind of jealousy. The partner who's talking to someone else attractive. Can a partner talk to someone else who's attractive and there not be jealousy? Of course, right? Like you have no idea what that other person's doing, right? That's why you have to communicate in relationships. And if jealousy comes up, you got to communicate about it. Like, one of my friends was giving a class the other day. And after the class, the class went very well. It was very, very good presentation. After the class, all these beautiful students ran up to him, right? They wanted to talk to him, right? And he was feeling very uncomfortable with it because his partner was kind of behind all of it, watching it, right? And he was trying to get out of it. And I said, well, why did you see them as attractive and not as students? Like, why did that happen? I just saw them as both. They were students and attractive. It's like, okay. He said, well, I wasn't seeing them attractive. I saw my partner seeing me hanging out with other attractive people. It's like, oh, so your partner saw that. Okay. Well, why did your partner see that? And you have to ask these questions, right? And it actually turned out that his partner wasn't upset. His partner was proud of him, that he gave a beautiful class, and that all these people came up to him and wanted to talk to him afterwards. And she was proud. She's like, look at that, It was a moment of pride and excitement and being like, yeah, that's my stud, you know. Let me find trying not to say too many words, right? But she was excited. She was super excited. He was having the perception that she wasn't excited, that he was surrounded by, you know what I mean, right? And it was just this cool thing of like, who was having what perception of what was going on, but the state of mind of jealousy, right? And it's actually a cool practice of his. He was imagining that his partner would be uncomfortable with the situation because he respects her so much, right? So was it a thing of jealousy that she was having, or was it a state of mind of respect and then worrying, There's a lot of layers to it, right? That's why you need to ask questions. That's why you need to communicate. Another type of subject, physical matter. Types of physical matter that act as subjects. What does this mean? An example of this could be like the eye sense powers, right? Your eyeball is acting as a subject. Hold on, just making sure. Okay. So you have to think about that. How does your eyeball act as a subject? And then the third of thing that's acting as a subject is going to be things that are neither physical nor mental. Neither only mental nor only physical, like a person, like Irebod, like Anna, right? Anna is not just a body. Anna is just not a mind. She's neither mental nor physical, nor is she only mental nor or only physical, right? But Anna acts like a subject together, all of her parts together. Okay. So you can see here, like when you're considering subjects, you can consider the whole thing. Tim is a subject, right? Or you can say, well, Tim's eyeball is a subject, right? This little thing here, right, is acting as a subject, bringing in colors and shapes, holding colors and shapes. My eyeball holds colors and shapes. My eyeball does not see a cup, which we've said many, many times. And then maybe your state of mind, like your jealousy or your pride or your positive pride. Like I'm so proud of you. You're my hero. Like like the way that she was looking at her partner. Like, God, he's so sexy. Like he's my like a state of mind holding an object, right? Before, never mind. Stop, Tim. Okay, get it? Three different types of subjects, but they're different, possibly different parts of you that could act as subjects. Different parts of you that are acting in certain ways that are holding objects. Okay. What's next? Okay, so what's interesting, okay, I want to do a comparison here. We have subjects, right? We have three types of things that are acting as subjects: states of mind, physical matter, and things that are neither physical nor mental. Now, if we go over here to this great chart, under changing things, we have physical things, mental things, and neither mental nor physical. You should go to the debate ground. And what is the difference, if there's a difference, between this chart and this one? Is there a difference? And you can think about that yourself. All right. Okay, 20 more minutes of definitions. All right. And I kind of cheated because I may have put those two things together. We have states of mind, mental things, physical matter, and neither physical nor mental. These things, states of mind, mental things, here we go, it gets divided even more. Get excited. Have two types of awareness: Rangrik and Shenrik. Okay. Rangrik is awareness of the self, self awareness. saw something that I'm going to want to use here. See if it's still here. No. Okay. So the other night, there was a full moon, and back behind me, the full moon rose over the mountain. And I took a really beautiful picture of it, right? What And then now I'm telling you the story of me going out onto my porch and then taking a picture of the moon. It was gorgeous, incredible moonrise. And then I tell you the story that I was that Tim looked out the window and Tim saw the moon coming over the mountain. And then he went outside and took a picture, and then he had a picture of the moon, right? That's what we mean by awareness of self. Even if I wasn't thinking about myself when I was taking the picture, because I was looking at the moon and I was engaged in the object of the moon, there's some kind of awareness of self that the logic school says is happening. And if any of you were in Ben's class, excuse me, Adam's class on Monday, we were talking about this. Wrong, Rick. Can you be having a perception of self? The question is, can you be having a perception of self while you're perceiving the moon? Can you be having two perceptions at the same time, is what the question was in his class. Go back to the class to get something like an answer. We're not going to debate it today. All right. So you have awareness of self and awareness of other things. That's a nice separation. Ron Rick, myself, Shenrik, others. That seems like that's a nice division. Awareness of other things can be divided into two things as well. Okay. What the hell does this mean? What are the two categories of mental things that are aware of other things? And it gets divided into mind and mental functions. What the heck does that mean? Let me get my notes out because it's not 100% clear to me either. So what it means is we're not talking about other objects, we're talking about the mind itself. The mind, what is it that has awareness of other things? That's what we're saying. What is the thing that has the awareness of other things? And so there's two things. One, it has is the main mind, the primary consciousness, like the main mind itself, the general mind that houses all the other mental functions, maybe. And then all the mental functions, feeling, discrimination, jealousy, anger, pride, virtuous states of mind. Okay. All of the things. Abhidharma says 46, Sutra says 51. Right. All the things that are in the mind that can function as a state of mind. All right. Now you guys know the whole system, more or less. What does this have to do with Chitta drug? Let's get there. So when you're having your state, those state of minds, okay, I wanted to put them to the right here. Just imagine all of this moving left. Okay, because there's just not enough space on the chart. right? We have these things called perceptions, right? The main mind, the mental functions, the awareness of others, Shenrik, the awareness of self, Runrik, all of those things have perceptions, right? So mental things can be divided into two different things. Another division, which are still perceptions, but they get divided into valid perceptions and not valid perceptions. Now we're getting into the meat of all of this. Okay. And in the logic schools, they consider almost every perception you have is to be valid. Almost every perception you have moment to moment to being valid. Now, whether it's right or not is a different story. Okay. It's perfectly valid that I'm looking at my partner who's talking to a lot of cute other people and I'm having jealousy. Okay. It's a valid perception. I'm having that experience. It is true that I'm having that experience. Okay. Is what the thing I'm having the perception about right? That's a different story, right? But I'm experiencing jealousy. Like, don't tell me I'm not experiencing jealousy. Anyone who's having a mental affliction, the last thing you need to tell them is to invalidate their perception, right? But there's ways to discuss with people to check whether it's right or not. So everyone is having a valid perception, whether they're having an affliction or not, in most ways. Okay. Now, if you're having a perception, what they would say is that if your jealousy is so strong that you're almost like you're looking at your partner and they're blinking and you think that they're winking at someone else across the room because you're so jealous, like you're literally creating things that aren't there. That's when we move into non-valid perceptions. Personally, I like to think of all perceptions as valid for that person because they're having it. It's just more useful. Don't try to argue with something that they didn't perceive something. It's not helpful. At least in my world, it's not helpful. It doesn't seem to be helpful. Like how do you talk with somebody who might be inventing things because of their strong negative emotions, right? You just, if you say you're just inventing things, it doesn't quite, is that really the kindest thing to do? You know, okay. Valid perceptions are then broken down into two: direct valid perceptions and conceptual valid perceptions. Direct is anything that is perceived directly by your mind, right? Directly by your sense powers, excuse me. It's direct awareness. And the direct valid perception is actually defined based off of conceptual valid perceptions. So a direct valid perception is one that doesn't involve a conceptualization. I just thought of another invalid or non-valid perception. Have you ever been in a car and all of a sudden you have the perception of your car, you're stopped, and then you have a perception of your car moving, and then you slam on the brakes that are already on and realize that it was the cars around you that were moving, right? That's a non-valid perception, right? You weren't moving, but something else moved, but you interpret that perception that you were moving, and you were like, oh shit, my car is moving. And then you try to stop the car, right? That's another invalid perception. Or the famous one is your one I liked it. Like last night I was driving home. It was kind of cool to have this one. I was driving home and I was on the highway and I saw something run across the highway. And I was like, oh shit, a mouse. And so I quickly looked around. There's no other cars, and I kind of swerved around it. And as I got closer to it, I saw it was a leaf that the wind was blowing across the road. Right. I acted like it was a mouse because I didn't want to kill it, but it was a leaf. Right. That's another example. All right. Two types of valid perceptions. Excuse me. Yeah. Direct and conceptual. What are the conceptual ones? And then we kind of got through the class. Yay. There's three types of conceptuals: deduction, convention, and authoritative. Okay, so let's use deduction, right? Things that you can see through your logical mind that you're not perceiving with your direct senses. All right. So I have my phone. Okay. And I put my phone behind my back. All right. And then I ask you a question: is the phone still behind my back? Well, let me ask some questions. Did Tim's arm move since he put it behind his back? No, you didn't see my arm move. Okay. Then did you hear the phone fall onto the floor? Nope, you didn't hear any sounds. Okay. So you're by deduction, inference, you say yes, it still should be in Tim's hand. It's in Tim's hand still. Didn't drop on the floor. You didn't see Tim's hand move. Nobody walked by and took it out of his hand, right? This is what magicians do on stage. They use your direct perceptions and your deductive perceptions and mess with them. So you think one thing has happened, but another thing has happened, right? But the power of deductive reasoning is for us to see things that we can't perceive with our direct senses. Like, I don't know, emptiness, something that logically has to, I don't want to say has to be there because emptiness is an absence. There has to be an absence of things not coming from seeds. And you do that logically. And so that's how and then we work to get there. Use our logic to open up what has to be there that wasn't there, that we didn't think we could perceive. Our perceptions were tricking us into thinking something that wasn't there. All right. Convention. This one is based on when one thing kind of means something else. So, for example, like Tibetans, for example, they use the words the house for the rabbit to mean the moon. So, anytime they say house for the rabbit, they're actually meaning the moon. So, there's a convention or an agreement of what one thing means, even though those words don't mean those things. Um, Another example would be like if I said I got a lemon, I bought a lemon. Most people would think, well, he went to the store and he bought, you know, he bought this. He bought some lemons, right? So, or if we're talking about my car and I said I bought a lemon, what that actually means is I bought a car that breaks down all the time. So when I say I bought a lemon, everyone thinks I said, here's some lemons, right? But but you have to use your valid percent, like, in the context of I'm talking about my car, right? And I say I bought a lemon. It's, I didn't buy a lemon and put it in my car, right? It means something else. And then the third type here is a conception based on rational belief, like on something that is an unquestionable authority, can be totally trusted. And so what the Buddha has said, has said about himself is that don't believe anything that the Buddha says until you've proved it through your own logic. And so if you proved in so many things through your own logic, and you believe that a Buddha also is a being that cannot lie, you could come to a place where you could have a valid perception that something that a Buddha says is going to be 100% true. Any authoritative source. But you have to use your own logic first. You have to determine that what the Buddha said was true. And based on that experience that you've had over time, and through your logic, you believe that you've come to understand that a Buddha is someone who cannot lie, then you can trust what a Buddha says, right? Or in other words, it could be like if you have a teacher, right, and they've been helping you for so long, and you've seen how your life has improved. If they ask you to do something or they point something out, you can be like, well, yeah, in the past, they've always helped me. So I'm going to believe what they say to me right now. Is that a foolproof method? Oh no, you can think about it. It's 7:30. Yay. We survived. Okay. We didn't finish the last part of this class, which talks about different types of reasons. And then we go into sort of our next logical debate and thing that we learn about syllogisms, which we will do at the beginning of next class on Monday morning. All right, halfway done, guys. Only 5 more. Thank you for joining. And seriously, try to find a study buddy, someone that you can review all these things with, and be like, well, what the hell does this have to do with Chitta Druk? What does this have to do with all of this discussion of what subjects and objects are and what's going on in my mind? What does this have to do with the mental image, the perfect mental image, right? And you can work on that. with your friends. And you'll continue to work on it after this class. And I also wanted to announce is our review class, I'm going to do a in-depth presentation of Chiche drug for that last class. We go much deeper than we went a couple classes ago. And we're going to make it we're going to advertise it and make it an open class and kind of hook some more people into ACI. So cool. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tech. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, everybody, translators. Thanks for everything you do. And let's say goodbye to each other, and we'll be back in a half hour for some translation. Have a good day if you're not coming back, and I'll see you Monday.
Gracias, Tim. Hasta luego todos.
Thank
Adiós.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias, Tim.
Thank you.
Gracias, maestro Tim.
Thank
Gran
you,
noche a
Mr.
todos.
Team. Thank you, teacher.
We love you.
谢谢老师，谢谢翻译老师。
谢谢老师，谢谢翻译，谢谢。